What other things have you learned this year?
I learned it last year, but I didn't learn it, is that I don't need that many hot peppers. I just don't need that many hot peppers.
Yeah. What's your choice then if it's one?
Probably going to be like a multi-purpose guy, like a jalapeno or serrano. If I have a habanero and I'm not making that big of a dish, like how little of that habanero can I put in there? You know, I could just add like 5 jalapenos if I want spicier. I could just keep ramping up, but it's hard when you have like an ultra concentrated pepper. The Fresno pepper is another spicy one that I really have enjoyed a lot.
We're back. It is fall here on the Beet podcast with my boy Jacques in my garden, looking a little more sparse this time of year, Jacques.
Yeah, it's that transition time where things are looking a little bit sadder, but we're just optimistic for those future months ahead of us.
You know, you might be. I would say for me right now, I kind of like the transition.
Okay.
I like when things calm down a little bit and you get to choose what to grow again, right? Or you get to choose not to grow or to cover crop or the million different things you can do, some of which we'll talk about, of course, in today's show. How's your garden looking right now?
Right now, it's looking like end of summer.
Yeah.
Like my tomatoes, I'm not really pruning them anymore. Like they're covered in some dying leaves, some diseased leaves. There's a lot of fruit, almost more than we could even deal with right now. No more slicers, but we're overwhelmed with cherries. A lot of hot peppers. I know you have the same thing right now, is that the sweet peppers are slowing down, but the hots are just, they're still here.
They're still here.
And there's more than I even can dream of what to do with.
I'm looking back at my patch right now and I've got some preserving to do. Let's just say that much.
You've
I've got some sweets and some hots.
Some bombs in there too.
Yeah, there's
some real hot ones.
There's some real bombs in there, but that's fine. I mean, I think you're right. It isn't quite fall, although fall equinox just happened.
Yeah.
But it's not quite fall yet, at least here in Zone 10B.
Yeah, the vibe here is a little bit weird for fall, right? Because September can be the hottest month of the year.
Yeah.
Right now,
it actually was earlier this month.
That's true.
We hit about 95. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was wild. And overall, like my flowers are starting to wane. I want to start getting in some of those fall flowers. Greens are starting to pick up now that they're enjoying this cool weather. So it's patchy. The garden is patchy. And that's kind of, like you said, it's kind of fun. To me, I love the fall season, but I do get a little bit, I don't know if stress is the right word, but I get anxious. Am I getting this in early enough? Because I want to get that winter harvest. The thing with fall gardening, it's like, if you get it in late, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're just not going to get a harvest till spring.
It'll just take a while.
Yeah. But if you get it in just early enough, then you will harvest in like December and January.
Before the true winter, yeah.
And that's what I really like to do.
Of course,
it's really
we're saying
fun.
that the true winter, right? But like for most people, that frost date might be coming up on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously the advice is tailored to your climate. But I think for us, it is late summer. I was on a walk and I was like, there's some breeze coming through now. That breeze is a little bit crisper, but the sun's not quite super low yet at 4 or 5 p.m., like it will be. And so it is late summer.
So it gets a little bit sad.
Yeah.
It gets dark early.
Well, to me, it's almost like once it is fall, I'm in fall mode.
Yeah.
But before it's in fall, I'm in this liminal space where like, I don't really know how to feel about it. But what I will say is we are in transition in the backyard garden here. There's some stuff that's been completely cleared out. Tomatoes, peppers, we'll talk about some of the problems we have with those this season. We both kind of had the same thing. I thought I would have dodged your problem. Turns out not only did I not dodge it, I head-on collisioned with it because it's like all over my garden now. We'll share that in a second. But what we're doing right now is kind of like what we did from spring to summer. I think we did it well this year, which is not full clearing necessarily, unless you have to, and patchwork replanting in.
Absolutely.
So earlier this spring, had a bed of potatoes, cleared half the bed, harvested it out, planted squash, cleared the other half. Actually, excuse me, it was turnips, roots, and beets. Did the potatoes to harvest out half of those, and then as I harvest the other half, went squash, and then now the squash comes out and you put in broccoli.
Yeah.
Right? And so, sometimes it's a full clear, but sometimes not. And to me, the not just gives a bit more texture to the garden. It doesn't look so barren.
I agree. And that's kind of like that golden place you really want to get to.
Yeah.
Every year I try to do it better, like you mentioned. I pull out one bed at a time. I fully plant it with that fall transition because I want to stair step my way in. I don't want to full clear really, because then I just look at my garden, it's a bunch of little seedlings.
It's sad.
And it feels like what is there to do?
Yeah.
It's a little bit freeing once you get there though, because then you're just on autopilot waiting for it to grow. But one thing that I've started to experiment with this year is that I actually, let's say I had a bed of peppers. I pulled out a couple that I just didn't care about anymore, left the ones that I've liked, and then I am interplanting around those peppers with like a little brassica. So I'll put a little broccoli next to my pepper.
Yeah.
That'll start growing in like a month or two. When those peppers are done, I remove them. Now that broccoli is able to fully take over.
Okay,
so I'm kind of like
ask...
an under, like almost like your subterranean move with the potato lettuce.
Right.
But I'm staying on the surface.
So I was going to ask, as you were saying that, I was like, is he going to say he overwinters the peppers?
I might.
Or he takes them out,
yeah.
You know, because at least in our zone, you could overwinter in ground.
Yeah.
In any zone, you could overwinter out of ground, of course, digging the pepper up. But yeah, I like that idea. I think it's contingent on if you, let's move on to the topic of the day, I guess. If you have a problem in the soil.
Yeah.
Because there's my pepper patch, I don't mind leaving it in the same spot this year. Yeah. But I need to dig a couple up and see if I have
the root knot nematode.
Right. So we had some problems with the tomatoes this year. I thought most of it was my own grower's error, and there was some of that because I let the first batch of tomato starts get to maybe like 15 inches tall before I transplanted, which is too tall. You'd ideally want them a little bit shorter before that, or you'd at least have wanted to pot them up once or twice before you know, so the root structure is better. So I buried them really deep, and as we learned from our tomato experiment, that slows down top growth to put out more root growth than the top growth catches up.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe that would have stressed the plant out. Maybe it's a little bit more likely to get some mildews on it, and it did get that. But then when we dug up the tomato patch, we noticed another problem, which was, of course, the root knot nematodes, which you've dealt with in the past.
Yeah.
This is my first season dealing with them.
Yeah, it's annoying because this happened to me whenever I noticed it. I'd be like, why is this tomato doing so poorly?
Yeah.
I've given it everything it needs.
I'm fertilizing, I'm watering.
I'm pruning it,
Yeah.
like it's got sun, I'm harvesting. And you start to beat yourself up a little bit. You're like, I must have just really done something really dumb or bad. But then every time I've thought that and I've pulled the roots up, what you'll see is that instead of like a nice tapered root where like it's a little bit thicker at the beginning, gets thinner towards the ends, like a normal root, you'll see these like lumps. It looks like a peanut in a shell, right?
Yeah.
Like peanuts all over your roots.
It's very weird looking.
Yeah, they're chunky, they're nodules. And what happens is that those nematodes, they attack your roots and then they stop the ability for the water to move up the plant and nutrients.
Yeah.
So basically your plant is like kept in this barely alive stasis, just enough to get by.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'll just wait a little bit, maybe it'll get better, and it never does. It's a total trap.
It's interesting because the nematodes, they're basically just blocking it off and they're keeping the plant on life support so that it doesn't die, so that they don't die.
It's like perfect parasite.
It's the perfect, right? But then the tricky part is, of course, they don't know that we're trying to grow the tomato to eat, right? But it's funny because it also tricks us as gardeners. It doesn't just trick the plant to staying very alive. It tricks us to thinking, I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah, and you're feeling optimistic, like it's going to turn the corner.
You're like, oh, well, you know, for example, the ones that, the second batch we planted, that I got the nematodes on, we were like, oh, well, it must just be because we planted them mid-season. They're going to need some time to catch up. I was like, let's fertilize, let's throw some compost on, let's put some mulch down, let's keep the moisture in. Sure, all that probably helped, but like not to the degree that nematodes would be deterred by.
Yeah.
Which we found them in the backyard, we found them in the front yard raised bed.
That's rough.
And so we just laid down a cover crop of mustard. So we bought a bulk pack of mustard seed, put that down in the areas. But I mean, maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. It's like a biofumigant, basically.
Yeah. There's basically 3 different things that I've read that work that aren't like gnarly nuclear options.
Yeah.
The first is like chitin, apparently like insect chitin, crab shell, that kind of stuff.
Chitin or chitinase?
I don't know. I know it's like you add the crab shell meal or whatever, and then something with the chitin helps break down the nematodes.
Right.
The other one is French marigolds. Their roots will put out exudates, like materials from the roots that will actually decrease the nematode populations. That's another one where you're supposed to chop and mix into soil. And then the mustard. Now the mustard, same deal, either through the roots and actually the plant itself. You chop it up, you put it on your bed, you bury it and water it.
Yeah.
And that's basically like a mustard gas underground, and it wipes out the nematodes. And that's been shown to be more effective than like the gnarly insecticides that you have to flood your field with.
Right.
So I'm also doing that this year for the first time, and I'm optimistic that we could make it work.
I'm optimistic. I mean, I'm not interested in,
because otherwise you're rotating to somewhere.
What I will say though is I am still going to rotate this year.
I think that's a wise move.
Because I don't trust year 1 of trying the mustard technique out yet. So I will rotate. I'm not sure where. Maybe
that's the big problem in a small space garden. You normally put your tomatoes in the perfect place for those tomatoes.
Yeah.
and it could get challenging.
Maybe I'll put them on the back row of the test garden or something.
Oh, yeah.
You know, something like that, because that's far enough away that I don't think there's any contamination. But to be honest, I thought the front yard was far enough away. So somehow nematodes are in both the front and back in a raised bed and in ground, which is not a good sign for my garden right now.
No, that's not ideal. Hopefully that's something we could get around. But like that does give us the opportunity to assess and think about rotating a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think both of us started off being like, there's really no point in rotating until you have a problem.
Yeah.
And so now we have a problem.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think we both used to say like crop rotation in a small backyard homestead or garden, it's like, it's a little overkill.
Yeah.
And you generally, even, let's say rotating even did give you a bit of a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're still a home gardener, right? So do you really need like max optimal farmer's yield out of every single plant? Probably not, because I think a lot of people struggle to use their produce by the end of the season anyways.
That's true.
But you're right. Like right now, for sure, I would not gamble on planting my tomatoes in the same spot.
Or you put them in a container.
Even my peppers. Yeah, I mean, that now I'm starting to think of insurance policies basically. Like I'll do some in ground. I actually do want to put some tomatoes where the mustard is to see if it worked.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how will I know?
Totally.
Right. But then I will put a couple, like maybe I'll put a sun gold in a big grow bag.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put a sauce pepper in a big grow bag, something like that, so I can actually guarantee I get a yield. Right. So we'll see. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I don't mind getting these problems. I mind if I keep getting them for sure. But like the first time you get a problem in the garden is a gift to learn.
I agree. For me, if there is no challenge, then it gets very boring very quickly. And luckily the garden is always providing us with challenges.
Yeah.
Whether we want all of them at once or not, like it happens. And it gives you a chance to learn, to try something different.
Yep.
Maybe you try a different variety that's resistant and you end up liking it. You never know.
Yeah, maybe we should see if there's a nematode resistant variety out there and give it a try. What other things have you learned this year?
The other thing I've learned this year is that I learned it last year, but I didn't learn it, is that I don't need that many hot peppers. I just don't need that many hot peppers.
Yeah.
I only need one.
Yeah.
And the other thing is...
What's your choice then if it's one?
If it's one hot pepper?
Yeah.
It's probably going to be like a multi-purpose guy, like a jalapeno or serrano.
Oh, that level of mild.
Yeah, because I could add extra.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, if I have a habanero, and I'm not making that big of a dish, like how little of that habanero can I put in there? You know, I could just add like 5 jalapenos if I want spicier. I could just keep ramping up, but it's hard when you have like an ultra concentrated pepper. The Fresno pepper is another spicy one that I really have enjoyed a lot.
Yeah.
But the other thing I've learned is that I think I've given up on okra because I just don't get enough heat. So maybe look for cold tolerant variety. Same with melons is that I just put them in I like never want to dedicate the space. You grew some fantastic melons this year.
That was my best melon year. Yeah. For sure.
And I think you do have a lot more full sun in your garden, which can be like really great. Other times it could be annoying when you want a little bit of shade. But the melons love it. So I actually I was super happy. I was proud. I went to go check on it and some bug burrowed its way in.
Oh, no.
And the entire thing was rotten.
Oh,
on
no. Both.
I was like, are you kidding me, dude?
I wonder what it was.
I don't even know. I didn't even want to find it. I was like...
So you cut the melon open, it was just
it was putrid.
Oh, God.
It was terrible. Oh. Yeah.
That when you get excited to harvest something and then you touch it and you know something's wrong. Like this year for me, that was potatoes.
Yeah.
So like going on mistakes or lessons learned, I've learned most ways to not grow a potato by this point in time. And so I keep pushing different limits. And, you know, this season we did this big tomato and potato experiment, 2 different experiments actually, but the potato one, I learned from my friend Potato Ty, leave the potatoes in the ground till the top foliage dies back and then wait a little bit longer, even a week or 2, to fully sort of seal that potato in, like let it fully develop. And then you'll get a lot better long-term storage out of it.
I see.
And I think he's right. I mean, I'm not going to argue with him. He's a fantastic potato farmer up in Canada. They grow some of the highest volumes of potatoes up there of any farm. The problem I made is that I did not account for rot in ground based on the ground conditions. And so when I left them in, the ones that held up. But the ones that didn't literally smushed in my hands, you know, like when you grab it, because the trickiest part too is like it looked solid.
Okay.
That's even the more deceiving thing, because you dig the potatoes up.
And you're like excited.
And so you can see it, like you have the whole cluster and you grab, solid, you grab and your hand just goes right through it. and then you can smell it. It's just the smell is
It's
so
one of the
terrible.
worst smells, honestly, a rotten potato.
So what I learned is like, and in fact, I made this mistake twice with 2 different crops. One with potatoes, one with garlic. Both of them, I was trying to leave a little longer in ground to let them fully die off, theoretically improving their shelf life and storage. The problem, I just didn't realize the moisture conditions of the soil. It's too moist to do that.
Yeah.
So I should have pulled them earlier. So both of them had problems of different kinds. The garlic didn't rot out, but the papery skin vanished.
Right.
And so I only had the cloves
The
left.
preservation was not as good.
Which is okay, but it's just like it wasn't what I was.
It's not going to last you 6 months. It might last you a couple or 3.
Yeah, you
which
have to
is maybe enough.
Preserve it in oil or this or that, and you know, way better than having them all lost to rust the year prior.
Yeah, that was really sad.
So yeah, I mean, we learn here at Epic. We learn. We're not pros.
No,
but at least we're making every mistake once, and not multiple times.
Maybe twice.
Maybe twice. Well, you twice on whatever.
Yeah,
whatever
I
yours
think for
was.
me it's mostly I don't know what it is.
Sometimes there's
just me.
Sometimes there's just stubbornness. You know, like you could be planting 50 crops in your summer garden.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't care about the okra, so you don't pay as much attention to it.
Yeah.
Right. And to the point of like growing less hot peppers. I don't have a great heat tolerance, but I do enjoy growing hot peppers almost as a pure hobby. Like I like the look of them. I like the way they grow. I like the satisfaction. If I want, I can string them up like we did last year. And actually, we have ended up using those strung up peppers, use them in a Thai dish when our friend came over to cook. And so sometimes I think the love of the grow, like if you were to say, I don't want to grow any flowers because I don't eat them, that would be an absurd statement, right? Because you can't eat most flowers. So there's things you can grow purely ornamentally, and you could just say like, hey, look, I just happen to really enjoy the look of a pepper and I could grow it that way.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that.
That's true. I am growing radicchio this year.
Yeah.
I never am like, ooh, I want that radicchio, but it looks pretty. And I want to see it.
In Michigan, where radicchio was the green that they put in there.
That's it. The bold move.
Oh, and it's crazy. It's one of my favorite styles, like a turkey pesto, ciabatta, little cheese. And that one radicchio crunchy slice overpowered the whole sandwich. It cut through the whole, like, it's got that bitterness, right? So it cut through like the mayo or the aioli or the cheese. Not in the, to me, not in the best way.
It was a radicchio sandwich.
It was just too much. Like it cut through too much. Maybe some arugula would have been nice, the lighter cut.
Yeah, exactly.
I did learn, like the bitterness cuts through those rich umami savory flavors, but something about radicchio, it's just too much.
It's a little bit ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Yeah, that and escarole, endive, some of those, like, it can be a challenge. I think to me too, it's like if you harvest those too late, that bitterness can only, it starts out bitter, right? So that bitterness can only grow.
Yeah.
I actually saw in the fields once, I was at a vegetable trial where breeders will bring you out and you'll get to test out new varieties. Most of these were for farming varieties, but you could see some home garden varieties too. So what they would do is with the escarole or endive, I forgot which one, they had these white bowls, basically, these opaque bowls.
Yeah.
And they would cover them up when they're about half size. So they'd basically blanch them.
Totally.
Which kept them a lot more mild. So you still get the escarole endive flavor, but it's just cut down by, literally like 70%.
Okay, well, maybe I'm going to be doing that this year.
That's an interesting technique, right? Because you're blocking chlorophyll. So you're it's the same thing you would do with a leek.
Yeah.
Same thing you do with asparagus, you could do it with, right? Because you're literally just turning it white by not allowing it to turn green. That's its natural state.
More mild.
Yeah.
That's cool.
White asparagus. Interesting crop.
Yeah, it is fun to just try those things, just to be able to understand the process, how different things grow. Because it is like, for me, when I go to the grocery store, I want to be able to say like, I know where that comes from.
Right.
How does it grow?
Yeah.
How could I grow
like
it?
when you see a leek with this much white stem versus this much white stem, there's a different hilling process that's taking place.
Totally.
I was at a local grocer recently, one of the nicer ones in the city, and I was marveling at some of the produce, because when you garden at home, you basically accept a certain level of appearance from your plants, right?
Yeah,
sometimes you get some bangers, some specimens.
Yeah.
But most of the time, like even my melons, I had some really good ones, but I had some ones that had a little weirdness on them. They didn't look picture perfect. Obviously, they tasted good.
Yeah, that's
But when you
for
go
sure.
to the grocery store, especially like a nicer one, it does kind of shock you at the level that produce can get to. The level of quality you can actually get to on growing produce.
I always wonder if it's like they harvested 10,000 melons and they graded and like 2,000 were perfect.
Yeah.
So they go to this store.
Yeah.
And like the other 5,000 go to like Costco, and then the last 2,000 go somewhere else.
That is how it works, roughly speaking. Roughly speaking, even going back to potato tie, I mean, potatoes have grades as well, and there's potatoes that are not grocery grade. I'm not using the right terminology, but they're not grocery grade, but they'll go to like for fry production, right? Or they'll go to feed production or something. Like it's slightly marred or rotten,
ugly,
something like that, but it can be chopped and like sterilized or whatever, and it can go for like animal feed.
Yeah.
So there is a whole infrastructure on like seconds and thirds, right? And that's where companies like, we've worked with them in the past. I don't think they're called this anymore, but Imperfect Foods.
That's right.
Yeah, I think they were purchased actually by Misfit Market, which is the other company in that similar space. Yeah. But I did a lot of work with Imperfect Foods back in the day, and that was their whole thesis when they started. And it was I think it was basically a CSA box you could get of seconds, right? Yeah. But it wasn't community supported agriculture. It was grocery rejects, basically.
Yep.
And then what I thought was so smart about their model is they started doing it with packaged goods. So they did, those like skinny dip almonds that you can buy at the store. That's like the actual brand name. You could buy Imperfect Produce skinny dipped almond like ends. And so the almonds, they weren't like full almonds, but it was the exact same product,
the flavor,
the exact coating. It's just that you're eating half an almond or a third of an almond instead of a full almond.
It's like, who cares?
But the bag's full of, the volume of the bag's the same, right? So they would do that with
That's cool. I like
some of those, like some snack products and stuff. I thought it was a really smart model. And to me, I'm like, what is the difference? I don't see a big difference.
Nothing. At home, it's like, that's what you would do as a gardener.
Yeah.
Like you would make that produce as precious as you can and try to use it.
Yeah.
But at the grocery store, we become different because we have to pay for it. Like, we want to pay for perfection. Yeah. And it's just like a weird disconnect.
Yeah.
I will say though, like in terms of the fall garden, I wonder what you are the most excited for. I am personally extremely excited to have broccoli coming out of the garden.
Yeah.
I just don't like buying it from the store. It doesn't taste as good. So that's like one of these like little things that I'm actually really looking forward to.
I would say I am excited for broccoli. I am excited for just all root crops in general.
That's true.
So I'd like to get some carrots in as soon as I can, because I had a good carrot season last year. Planted them a little later than I'm going to this year, but I had my best carrot year yet by far.
Your spring carrot season from that back bed was insane.
Hundreds and hundreds of carrots.
Just kept coming.
Picture perfect. And they stayed in the ground a lot longer than I would have expected. So we had some carrots into summer. They were a little bit more woody, but like you could have used them for stews or whatever. Like maybe it wasn't. There was this shaved carrot salad that we were doing that was really good.
That was good.
You need a fresh, juicy, like really nice carrot for that, but the other stuff you could have. So yeah, carrots. I do want to experiment with carrots in the sense of more varieties this year. I had 2 last year.
I have a really hard time distinguishing the variety. Like,
unless it's a colored variety.
Yeah, I'm like, tastes like a good carrot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's carrot varieties to me, there's the sweetness modulator for sure. Yeah. But to me, most of the time they're grown differently because of sheer size.
That's right.
Right, so Littlefinger or Perigis, the small guys. You got the Danvers or the Imperators that go really deep.
Blunted.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of that, from a home garden perspective, I would say if there's a days to maturity difference, then sure, you could choose a variety on that. But I think a lot of it's farming specific.
Some are good for juicing or maybe for storage.
Yeah.
And I just don't get that granular right now.
Yeah, exactly. With carrots for sure. Yeah, exactly. Carrots, and then I would say I'm excited to get some beets in as well. Yeah. I found a love for beets in the kitchen this year with different beet salad recipes that have made me want to consume them more, I guess you could say. Up to the level I grew them at least. We grew so many beets last year.
I actually had this beet salad. I've never had it this way. I don't remember exactly what was on there, but one of the combinations of ingredients in there was chopped up roast peanut. And the peanut with the beet was like really good.
Yeah.
I've never even thought about that.
Thai vibe. Yeah. I don't know that Thai cooking would use beets that often.
I don't know, but it was delicious.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to recreate something like that.
Well,
so I'm excited for that one.
We did that. So the shaved carrot salad I was mentioning, you take a mandolin and you do a thin slice, like as thin as almost like translucent thin. You do it lengthwise though.
Okay.
So you get long ribbons. You get ribbons. You do sesame oil, black sesame, and a couple different, maybe it's like some sort of mustard in there. But then we added crunched up peanuts.
Oh, okay.
So to tie it up a little bit, right? Because to me, I don't know, something about Thai cuisine, just adding peanuts in, there's this Thai sausage dish that has like peanuts and cabbage and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the peanut fattiness, I guess.
Yeah, and the little crunch.
And that crunch adds something. The cabbage has the bitterness. Whatever sauce, usually there's some acid in the sauce, right?
Really good.
It's just so good. I mean, Thai and Vietnamese, so good.
The complexity of flavors there are just hard to do at home. Well, unless you practice.
Unless you know. I mean, you got to study, right?
Yeah.
It's easier than Indian food, at least, though, because Indian food, you need like garam masala and all these like specialty spices.
There's so many regions across India with entirely different cuisines.
Yeah.
Like,
I got addicted a while ago. Gordon Ramsay had a show where he was traveling around India.
That's right.
To the different regions, and he would talk to the chefs there about why their regions, you know, renowned for a specific
it's not
type
just
of food.
Curry.
Yeah, not just curry. No, there'd be obviously a lot of Indian cuisine is vegetarian, but there's an area, I want to say in the north, but if you're Indian and listening, I'm probably butchering that. That's like renowned for their fish. And so he goes up there and he like watches them cook fish. He does the tandoor.
That's cool.
Speaking of, I've got a crazy announcement.
He's about to drop it here.
Yeah, if you're in San Diego in November, look up the World Naan Festival, naan bread. I got an email from a guy. Cold email. One of the best ones I've ever gotten, asking to be a judge at the World Naan Festival, because obviously we're gardeners here in San Diego. I love Indian food.
I didn't get an invite. I
tried to get you in. Well, you can come.
I'll come sample.
Maybe you bring a naan.
They didn't want.
I'll judge your naan.
I'll
judge your naan. But no, so I mean, this is the confession. So when I was working on Epic Gardening early days, 2016, 2017, I would often go to Indian buffet for lunch. And then I would, because it was $18 and I only needed one meal. Yeah. Right? Like I could skip breakfast, go eat Indian buffet for lunch, and then that would be it. And then you could even get dessert there, because you could get the rice, that sweet pudding, rice, and then the gulab jamun, you know, those circle balls that are soaked in honey. You get those, you're good for the day. So that was like a couple blocks away. I'd walk home, and then I would continue to work on Epic. Usually it was writing the blog at the time until I had to pass out because I was so tired, food coma, you know? So I was like, well, $18 a day I can eat. I recognize that's not that cheap if you add up the whole month, but from a simplicity's perspective, I was like, okay, I can do this. But man, I love Indian food. And so, yeah, if you're in San Diego around November, I think it's the 11th maybe or the 17th.
I'm definitely going to check it out.
World Naan Festival. Last year, 600 attendees. They want to go above a couple thousand this year. So I've got my work cut out for me.
Okay. Yeah. You better bring your appetite.
Yeah, I got to train literally to be hungry enough to eat the naan bread. But kind of brings us to cooking though, Jacques. Fall. I was just talking with my girlfriend. She was saying she's excited to make a pumpkin sourdough that has a pumpkin shape. Oh. You know, where you tie
it?
Right?
Yeah.
So she's excited for that.
That's cool.
And we're going to do some soups.
Her skill's been elevating.
Soup season.
Yeah, I'm ready for soup season.
Yeah.
We already kind of dabbled a little bit into it this past week.
We're probably doing a chicken noodle. Chicken dumpling though, underrated.
That's good.
Underrated
for sure. I love soup dumplings.
Dude.
Or like dumplings in soup, I should say.
Yeah, this is more of like
it's like the dough.
The European style dumpling, right? Where you just ball up some milk and dough.
It's almost like a biscuit that you're like poaching in your soup.
That's a great way to put it. That's almost exactly what it is. And yeah, it's a really good. No, here's what I've learned with the soups that I've really enjoyed. Obviously, so many different garden soups you can make. If you did grow squash this year, it was a winter squash, start cracking those boys open.
Oh yeah.
Butternut squash soup, one of the best ones you can have. Grab some tomatoes out of the freezer, do like a tomato bisque, right? But I got these things called super cubes. Have you heard of these?
I feel like I have, but I don't.
Spelled soup, the meal, ER cubes, super cubes. So they come in all these different sizes, but the ones that are the most helpful, it's a silicone mold, two big rectangles. Okay. Two big rectangles. It'll come out like almost like a tofu block, a little bigger actually. And you make a soup, you have 2 servings. So make a 4-serving soup if you're 2 people.
Yeah.
You have 2 servings, you fill a super cube up with 2, and then you've got two more servings. And then you throw that in the freezer. But the beauty is, since it's silicone, you can flip the mold.
Right.
And it comes right out as a square, and you can put a pot on. Let's say you're working from home, or it's a weekend, right? And you're like, I really wish I had soup in an hour, and I want it to be like that warmed up feeling, not like microwaved. You just put it on simmer, and you drop the block in, and you just dump it out.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah, and it does, since you froze it at the time of cooking, and you heat it up slow, it just tastes like you just cooked it, right?
That's great.
So soup season is something I'm here for. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm
What else
definitely
is
here
on
for
your
that.
on your radar?
The other thing, the last kind of thing that I'm thinking about for the garden right now is that this time of year is like one of my favorites to actually set up mushroom beds.
Ah.
And I got some wine caps earlier this year, but I want to like quadruple down, because speaking of nematodes, I was actually visiting Northsport up in Maine and chatting with Louis, their mushroom guy. He said that the wine cap mushrooms, when they spread through the soil, I think he called it the hyphae. There's like the leading edge of the mycelium.
Right.
It literally hunts down and traps nematodes and eats them. So like, I was like, okay, I'll get mushrooms and solve my nematode problem. So I'm gonna try doing some more mushroom beds. I'd actually love to do a couple here, because we've talked about it a bunch.
I'd like to,
but we've never, for some reason, set it up.
I'd like to do it. Maybe we'll do one between the tomatoes and the peppers, where we know there's at least
hunting season.
Yeah, we know there was at least some. I was reading Teaming with Microbes, Jeff Lowenfels, I want to say, and he talked about that exact thing. He had microscope photography showing
so cool
a hyphae piercing a nematode.
Yeah,
and
those are tiny.
Yeah, they're tiny. You can't see a nematode with the human eye, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, I'm excited to do some mushrooms. You were just up in Maine at Northsport Mushroom, who's a great partner of Epic, and we are very excited. Actually, that episode will come out sometime soon on the channel.
Yeah.
If it may already be out by the time you listen to this. Jacques went up there with the team, and they did an awesome series showing
much fun.
How mushrooms get produced. Like if you would go buy mushroom spore or a block, how does the company actually make it?
Yeah,
right.
Which is fascinating, because it's like it all starts from just like a chunk of mycelium,
tiny little chunk,
and you can just create all these blocks and different mushrooms. You can send them around; they'll reliably grow.
Yeah,
super fun. Like I think everyone will really enjoy that one.
Yeah,
so I won't spoil too much on it.
Yeah, don't spoil too much. You definitely check the episode out. Jacques, your first tour.
Yeah,
your first solo tour
up there
on the channel.
Blast.
Proud.
Oh yeah,
excited.
I'm very proud and excited. I also did a lot of like fun vlogging on the side. Went to Common Grounds Fair, which was super fun. I did mushroom foraging in the woods, which was, I would say, like, it's such a weird thing. It's like almost electric. Like I want to find a group here that we could go do some foraging, because it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Because like there's an expert. You feel like a kid again. Like he's your teacher, and you're like, oh, teacher, what is this? What is that? Yeah. Like, look at this thing I found. And you get like all hyped for yourself.
It's like summer camp.
And he's like, oh, it's the same one you found earlier. And you're like, oh, man, I found out something cool.
Trying to collect them all.
So it's super fun.
I want to do it. Yeah, I have not done a proper mushroom forage, which is sort of silly. I have a grow chamber coming in soon.
I know.
So
I'm waiting for one too. I'm actually really excited.
A little sneak peek. There's a company called TerraShroom that I personally invested in a while ago, 2 years ago actually, almost to the day. And it's this like high-tech mushroom grow chamber, humidity controls, sensor controls. We've tried a few out ourselves. There was one called the Mela.
Yeah.
Wasn't a huge fan of it. It's just a little clunky.
Complicated.
But yeah, the TerraShroom's coming. I'll probably do a review on the channel. Obviously, I did invest in it personally, so there's going to be some bias there. Like I like the product, I like the founder, but I am excited about it. I haven't seen anything quite like it. And Jared, who's the founder, he's going to come out in a couple months.
Oh, that's cool.
And we're going to hang and do some.
I actually ordered one, I think, before you told me.
You did.
You did. Were involved.
Well, they're coming soon. So they're coming soon.
I'm excited.
But anyways, yeah, mushrooms, we're starting to get excited about them, guys. So you might see, I don't know about a full channel, but I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say no. There might be a channel on mushrooms coming. At the very least, there'll be some content on mushrooms, especially in the off season. You can grow them indoors. You can set your beds up for them.
Yep.
Which let's do that. Let's commit to do that. I'd like to do some mushroom pathways. And we hope you guys have a good fall season. Let us know. Especially if you're watching the video version of this podcast. What is your plan for fall? Do you want to see some more mushroom stuff? Do you like this style of episode? Obviously, we've switched the format up a bit. And we will see you in fall, my friends. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.